So if you guys couldn't already tell by this signed Season 7 Clone Wars poster with all the actors, I'm a huge Star Wars animation fan. The Clone Wars was essentially my childhood, and now we have the Bad Batch coming back with Season 3, and I have so much to say about it. We're going to break down the first 3 episodes. They blew my mind, to be quite frank. We're going to break them down. I'm going to give my thoughts as we go through each episode. Most importantly, I want to know what you guys thought about the first 3 episodes of the Bad Batch, so leave those comments. I read every single one. I most likely will respond. And lastly, we are almost at 1,000 subs. Sorry, I forgot I was rewinding the TV. But yeah, we're almost at 1,000 subs, and each and every one of you who watch these videos, including everyone who is new here, thank you so much. It means so much to me. If you could leave a like and subscribe, it would help me out more than you could possibly know. But with that out of the way, let's talk about the magnificent first 3 episodes of the Bad Batch Season 3. We start this episode off on Tantus. Now, this is the planet that is holding Omega and Crosshair hostage. This is a prison for clone troopers and other creatures, and they zoom in on this place in multiple different angles, letting you know how strong the security is here. There's threats on the outside, threats on the inside. It's basically safe nowhere. And immediately, the tone of this first episode is somewhat Andor-like. It's very dark, very serious, kind of like what the Clone Wars Season 7 did for the Clone Wars, where the first 6 seasons were more lighthearted with some serious moments. This has gone full on dark, gritty, and serious. Depressing even. At the end of Season 2, we meet Echo's supposed sister, Emery, and guess what? She's back and she's trying to get Omega to give her blood for tests. That way they can test her blood for midichlorians. Midichlorians are what determine someone's force, talent, or ability. They reside in everyone, and they're using these clones, testing them for midichlorian counts for something that is very sinister, something that leads into possibly the sequel trilogy.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Omega tries so many times to try and bring Emery to the light side and kind of get her to abandon the Empire, realizing what they're doing is completely wrong, but she kind of fails over and over again, and Omega has been there forever. And by forever, I mean like 150 days or so, because we have a time jump. Her hair is grown, we see the tally marks on the wall, and she's just kind of been in this cycle of testing clones' blood with Nala Se over and over again. Now, Nala Se wants Omega by her side because she knows that Omega herself is special and that her DNA can in fact hold midichlorians. Now, why does the Empire want to use Omega's blood for midichlorians? Well, because they want to clone force sensitives and have force sensitive clones in general. More specifically, a clone for Palpatine.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Now, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but this seems like the direction that they're going with this series. Nala Se is protecting Omega by using the blood sample that was taken from Omega and throwing it away. That way the Empire never finds out that she has force-sensitive or midichlorian-filled DNA. Omega makes friends with a creature inside of this jail cell, and it is very foreshadowing to what happens with the other person that Omega knows from this prison. And that's, of course, Crosshair, the former member of the Bad Batch who has disgraced his entire brotherhood and is sort of reaping the consequences of joining the Empire and realizing that they don't want clones. They want clones gone completely, and now are using them like rats for tests. So at first, Omega tries to feed this dangerous creature and it resists, but over time, after finding out that they're possibly going to kill this creature and Omega gives it food, they begin to form a bond in a relationship. This directly parallels what's going on with Omega and Crosshair. Crosshair up until this point wants nothing to do with the Bad Batch, but he's kind of starting to change. He sees the evils of the Empire and Hemlock and everybody who's kind of left him to the side. We even see stormtroopers start to form in this series, the Phase 1 stormtroopers, if you will. The clones are being decommissioned and used purely for tests. They're still making use of some of the more strong clones like the Republic Commandos, but we see a giant change from using clone troopers to actual stormtroopers. And frankly, this episode overall is just very depressing, and I think it does a good job setting up where our character, as far as Omega and Crosshair go, are at this point. We don't see any other members of the Bad Batch in this episode, but I have to say, this was my favorite of the 3. It reminded me a lot of Andor in its best ways, but still had the charm of the animated Star Wars series that we know. Plus, the mystery and implications of Omega's blood having midichlorians in it, or being possible to hold midichlorians, is a huge, huge clue as to where this series is headed in the finale or even the next couple episodes. I also want to point out I am glossing over so much in this first episode and will be glossing over things in the second and third episode, so leave your comments down below on things that I missed or things that I didn't discuss in this video. That way people who are watching this can get the full experience and know everything about these first 3 incredible episodes. Episode 2 starts with a returning character, Roland Duran, from the season 2 of Bad Batch, and we finally catch back up with Hunter and Wrecker. It's weird seeing just them two after knowing that the Bad Batch was originally, what, 5 or 6 people? The Bad Batch is down bad right now, and they're doing everything they can to get themselves back together, especially after the death of Tech in season 2. This episode starts with kind of the completion of a bounty from season 2, where we see Issa Durand, the queen of this land, kind of giving the Bad Batch their bounty reward. And this reward is the coordinates to a laboratory where they think Omega is being held. They go to the coordinates and they find 3 clones, but they are children. So essentially these are 3 Boba Fetts. This was really cool seeing the fish out of water from not only the Bad Batch's perspective, but also these children who are clones, and yet even though they're still children, they were left out to dry just like everybody else. Showing that the Empire is completely done with the clones and they only have one purpose now, and that's for their DNA, for harvesting, and for, yeah, more cloning, but not to their benefit. Hunter and Wrecker get in this giant fight with this Sarlacc-like enemy of the forest. It looked really, really cool and just looked like a giant Sarlacc. Of course, they take it out, and this is kind of the end of the episode. This one definitely had more action than the first episode, but overall, I think this is the weakest link out of all of them. Just because I think it's the weakest doesn't mean it's bad. In fact, I think this was very enjoyable, and some people probably think that this is the best episode. But the best thing about it, and especially with the third episode, there is a consistent tone going across the entire thing. It's serious. This is the finest hour of the Bad Batch. This is their last moment to get everyone back together, because this is not only the last season, but this could possibly be where their story ends. And I'm frankly just glad they're taking it seriously. So the base that they found was abandoned, but they end up taking these 3 clone children with them to find Omega. Now let's talk about episode 3, Shadows of Tantus. In this episode, we see that Nala Se has told Omega that she has to get out of there because somebody is coming to the lab. And of course, that person is none other than the Emperor himself, foreshadowing what this whole program is about. We learn that this is Project Necromancer. And if we take that at face value, that kind of means using the dead to bring life. Essentially, Palpatine making up his own backup plan already for when he dies.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
We can totally see where this is going. Midichlorians are present within the blood of Omega, so is she Force sensitive? I'm not sure about that, but Palpatine definitely wants to use her to clone himself. This also ties into The Mandalorian Season 3 with the Gideon clones and everything of that nature. In fact, we got our first reference to Project Necromancer in The Mandalorian Season 3. And man, when the Emperor arrives, hearing Ian McDiarmid back as the Emperor is just so chilling. And let's talk about the music in this episode first. Not just this episode, but the whole first 3 episodes. There is a score. It doesn't feel like a soundtrack. It feels like a grand score, a grand finale for a series, and that's exactly what this is. Every moment, even the happy moments, are full of suspense. And when the Emperor's theme hit, I was getting chills. The Emperor is here to check in on the progress with the cloning DNA being Force sensitive. And while they haven't been successful yet, in this episode, they get the blood of Omega and find out that she is able to harness midichlorians. However, of course, Omega escapes, but Nala Se stays behind. In my opinion, I don't know if I could picture a better start to season 3 of The Bad Batch. And this doesn't even include the things that we know are coming within the trailer, such as the return of Asajj Ventress. These were very strong starts to the season, and I'm so intrigued. I'm more involved with these characters than I was in the first 2 seasons within these first 3 episodes of this 3rd season. I care a lot about Omega, and I care equally as much about Crosshair, Hunter, and Wrecker. I'm hoping we see Rex. I'm hoping we see what happens to Cody, because we know he was left off in season 2. And now that they have the blood of Omega, are they going to be making clones instantly? Is she going to use her blood to potentially create a Snoke? Because we know that Snoke was referenced as an abomination in the novelization of Rise of Skywalker, and that is what Palpatine says here in this episode. They're laying the breadcrumb trail for what's going to happen in the sequel trilogy, and like the sequels or not, I'm glad they're going to explain everything, giving the same effect that the prequel trilogy had on the original trilogy, explaining the things that happened in the original trilogy, therefore giving more weight to the original trilogy by creating more drama. So you have the Bad Batch building up everything that takes place in the sequel trilogy. It's the best they can do with what they have, and I'm glad they're diving into it and being serious about it and telling good stories so far. Obviously, we don't know where this season's going to go, but if this is any indication, I'm very excited and very impressed. Like I said, Star Wars Animation has has a special place in my heart, and this did not disappoint in the slightest. Guys, let me know down below what you think is going to happen in the next episode. We're going to go much deeper next week on the 4th episode. They released the first 3, so it's kind of hard to condense all of that into a short video, but please let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know if I missed anything. Leave a comment, subscribe. We're on the road to 1,000 subs, and I will see you all very, very soon.